الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Welcome brothers and sisters for the start of this new program or this new Halaqa series, and inshallah ta'ala in this series we will be focusing on a very noble type of knowledge, and that is al-fiqh, jurisprudence. And bi'idhnillah, the idea is to go through a series of fiqh lessons on various ibadat, as the classical ulama have done in the past in books and whatnot. And amongst the ulama are those who divided the core ibadat into different categories and different numbers, so on and so forth. But for the most part, we focus on the 5 arkan of Islam. After the shahadat la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammad Rasulullah, which is more in the Qidah area, we go on to the next rukn, which is, what's the second rukn after kalimat al-tawheed? As-salat. As-salat is the second rukn of arkan al-Islam, the pillars of Islam. And when we begin talking about the fiqh of the salah, we begin talking about what comes before the salah in terms of ibadah, which is, what's a prerequisite, a major prerequisite of the salat? Naam? Al-wudu, or shakl am in general, Tahara. And you'll find in many books of the scholars what they do is they begin talking about the salat, or sometimes the books of fiqh that are talking about salat, the beginning portion of it is about tahara, or they combine the two topics together, or sometimes they even separate it, having this tahara chapter prior to the chapter of the salat. So we will be doing inshallah the same thing. So we will begin these set of lessons with the fiqh of tahara inshallah. Then bi'idhnillah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us success and gives us the light, we'll continue on to the salat afterwards, and then other ibadat bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Inshallah ta'ala. So we will begin inshallah today, and we'll jump right into it, and that is the fiqh of tahara. So inshallah I will be bi'idhnillah relying upon classical Hanbali texts in this regard, and some sharh from some contemporary scholars inshallah, to present this madda bi'idhnillah. And I will begin by talking about the various ahkam related to a salat. So before I even go into tahara and we dive into it, if I were to ask everybody, how much ahkam is there? Actually, maybe you won't understand what I mean. There's different ahkam in regards to the salat. For example, there is such thing as a rukn, a pillar of your salat. There's something called a sunnah of the salat. There's something called a shart of the salat. These are called ahkam, rulings of the salat, okay? How much rulings is there in regards to a salat? And in many cases, many of the ibadat. Who can tell us how much set of rulings there are? Anybody know? I just gave some away. Should make it a little bit easier. How much rulings are there? Naam. 3? There's more than 3. Just to be fair, some ulama, they actually, there's difference amongst the ulama. Some of them, they went into depth and they divided up further. Some of them, they made it more concise. But in the end, inshallah, they all covered the same material. But anyone else have a say before we proceed on? So according to many scholars, they divided it into 7 categories. The ahkam is 7, okay? I'll begin by mentioning the first one, which is a shart, or a condition. The second one being, I already mentioned it. Before wajib though, fi shart, and there is, before that, rukn. There's shart, which is a condition. Then there is a rukn, which is a pillar. Then there is a wajib, which is something that's an obligation. Then there is a sunnah, which is something that is voluntary and recommended and you get extra reward for. Then there is mustahab min dimin sunan. After sunan, we have something that's called mubah. What is mubah?
Something that is not encouraged or discouraged.
Exactly, it's something that is neither discouraged or encouraged. It's something that's neutral. Okay? Mubah. Then we have set of ahkam that is, think about it on a spectrum, if you will. We just worked our way down. After mubah, what's the next hukm? Makruh, which is something that is disliked. Okay? Then after makruh, what's the last hukm? Haram, something that is forbidden or prohibited. Okay? So these are the 7 set of ahkam in regards to a salat, and in many cases, all the ibadat almost, pretty much. And we begin talking about the shurut. So, what's the difference between a shart for the salat and a rukn and a wajib and a sunnah? Okay? We know that haram means, obviously, when it comes to salat, something haram to do in the salat. Okay? Can someone give me an example of something haram to do in the salat? Eating. Jazakallahu khairan. It's haram to eat during salat. Okay? Someone who does so, their salah is nullified. Okay, what's something that's makruh? Something that is makruh, it's disliked during the salah.
Excessive moving.
Excessive moving. Jazakallahu khairan. Okay, what is something that is mubah? It's neutral. Something that is neutral in your salah. The location of the arms, that goes down to the khilaf of the ulama. There can be a little bit of discussion there now. Sneezing? Sneezing يعني هذا خارج يعني it's out of our hand. مثلا, something neutral is whether you pray wearing a thawb that's white or blue or brown. Whether you're praying wearing sand, actually no, that's something else. Whether you're whether you're wearing different colors, whether you're wearing a long jacket or a medium jacket, obviously with the outer cover. Okay, these are some stuff that is mubah. So do you get ajr if you're praying with a blue thawb on? No, you don't get extra ajr for doing that. Okay, is it disliked to do that? No, likewise. So that's neutral. So now, if we go to the previous ahkam, what is the difference between, okay, actually before we go to that, what's a sunnah? Sunnah is very easy. Sunnah means what? Bakr?
It's like something that the Prophet did.
Sallallahu.
Yeah.
Okay, something that the Prophet ﷺ he did, and we should repeat after him. But more specifically, what does it mean in regards to the ibadah? A sunnah is? It's optional. But if you do it, you get ajr, you get more ajr. So a sunnah is optional. If you do the sunnah, you get more reward. If you don't do it, there's no sin upon you. Okay, that's what we say a sunnah is in this regard. Okay, can someone give an example of a sunnah in the salat? Naam. Naam? I cannot hear you, Habibna. مثلا جزاك الله خيرا, praying ركعتين sunnah after the salat. Exactly. For example, salat al-dhuhr, if you were to pray the faridah, it's 4 rak'ah. You can pray 4 before, 2 after. If you don't pray those, there's no sin upon you. If you pray them, you get extra reward. So those are pretty easy, okay, in terms of the difference between them. Now if we go to the shart, condition, and a rukn, and a wajib now, okay? When it comes to the shart and the rukn, what is the difference between them? A condition and a pillar. What is the difference between them? Anybody know?
Shart is a prerequisite.
No.
Rukn is something within the salah that if you miss, the salah cannot be recapped. I mean, you cannot fix it.
How about the shart?
Shart is the same thing. Without the shart, there's no salah.
Okay. Jazakallah khairan. So they're very similar in the sense that a shart, a condition, and a rukn, without them, the salah is batil. Or according, we'll just say for ease, the salah is batil. So the salah needs them, whether you forgot the shart or the rukn, whether it's purposely or forgetfully. Okay, the salah is invalid. So, between the shart, the condition, or the rukn, without them, the salah is invalid, whether it was left purposely or forgetfully. Okay? However, as the akh mentioned, there is a difference between them, and the shart or the condition is a prerequisite to the salah. So what does that mean? It's outside of the salah, and it continues until the entire duration of the salah, till the very end. Okay? Whereas a rukn or a pillar is something that's within the salah. Is that clear? طيب. Now what is a wajib? I'll give you guys one pointer. A wajib, likewise, along with a shart and a rukn, if somebody leaves them out purposely, they're sinful. Okay? Forgetfully, then obviously there's no sin, but the ahkam is a little bit different. Can anybody tell us what is a wajib, or define a wajib for us? No, what's the definition of it? And then we'll give an example after.
It's a must to do as it's prescribed, and you can't leave it out.
Okay, it's a must to do as prescribed, you cannot leave it out. What if you left it out by mistake or forgetfulness?
In the salah,
Yes.
because of course the salah is invalid.
So we look at rukn then. That's the definition of a rukn. So it's a little bit different than that. No. No, Jazakallahu khairan, barakallahu feek. So a wajib is a little bit more, there's more leniency with a wajib. Okay, if somebody leaves a wajib purposely, then the salah is batil. Just as if somebody left a rukn or a shart. Whether they left those two purposely or forgetfulness, out of forgetfulness, the salah is batil. However, a wajib is, there's a little bit more leniency associated with the wajib. If somebody leaves the wajib out of forgetfulness or by mistake, then the salah is not batil. However, they have to do something to ujbur that part of the salah, or to rectify or correct that part of the salah. Okay, as the brother mentioned, you would have to do sujood al-sahw, what's called the prostration of forgetfulness. And we'll get to that in due time. So these are the different ahkam related to as-salat and related to many of the ibadat as mentioned. And we're going to be focusing on ash-shurut in this part. So from the shurut, or from the greatest of the shurut is Tahara, which is the title of our lecture series, inshallah. So, the tahara or purification is to be made from, or the ulama they define it as tahara min al-hadath. Okay, purification from ritual impurity. A hadath is an impurity. Okay, a hadath is an impurity, and we'll get to that in more detail moving forward. However, we know that there is two different types of tahara. Okay, there's tahara, which is ritual, making purification from ritual impurity, and then there's tahara from an-najasa. Okay, so what do we mean by the first part, making tahara from ritual impurity? Okay, there's three types of tahara that can be made from ritual impurity. And before we get to that even, there's two types of ritual impurity, which are referred to in Arabic as al-hadath al-akbar or al-hadath al-asghar. The major impurity, what's major impurity? Can someone give examples of major impurity? No, major impurity. There's three types of major impurity that a person can fall under. Janaba. Okay, janaba. When somebody has a relationship with their spouse, okay, they're on janaba. This is a major impurity. Okay, then the other two types of major impurity, they're specific to nisa, to women, are hayd and nifas. Okay, so menstrual cycle or menstruation, or in nifas, after birth or postnatal bleeding that a woman experiences. Those three are the major impurities referred to as al-hadath al-akbar. And we know that major impurity requires ghusl. Okay, and it requires the ritual bathing. And then we have al-hadath al-asghar. Al-hadath al-asghar, can someone give some examples of al-hadath al-asghar? No? Using the washroom. Okay? Whether someone has to urinate, or defecate, or passing wind, these are things that are hadath al-asghar. Anyone know anything else? We're going to go into it inshallah in more detail moving forward, but just to test your trivia skills or your fiqh skills, what's another hadath asghar? Musa? Eating camel meat. Depends on madhab you follow, but eating camel meat. Okay? Unless you're a Shafi. But eating camel meat is also, according to the majority of scholars, is a type of hadath asghar. Nah.
I also heard, like, if you bleed, like, a lot, then you can remove your wudu.
If you?
Like, bleed, like, you get, like, a big cut. And
If you bleed lots, you can remove your wudu. There's a khilaf between the ulama of that, and it goes back to whether some of them, there's also the khilaf regarding whether blood is najis and whatnot. Nah, but you have a question? So, likewise, these are issues of difference, but if somebody vomits, also some scholars they say that nullifies the wudu as well. Na'am. Mas al-awra. Okay, somebody touching the private area, this is also something that can invalidate. Na'am. Biliyad. Yeah, touching the awra by somebody's hand, like direct contact. Okay, anything else? There's one major one that there's khilaf in the details of it, but everyone agrees to it pretty much, or almost. The majority of scholars agree to it. Naam? No. Naam? Money? I don't know hadath asghar about money. Sleeping. Okay? Touching with the opposite gender as well. Okay, sleeping is also part of the hadath asghar, touching the opposite gender according to some scholars likewise. Tamam. So now if I want to ask, can anybody give the ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has recommended or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has illustrated to us al-wudu? Anybody know the ayah which Allah commands al-wudu? What's the ayah? Who knows? Everyone should have this memorized. I'll give you a hint. It's the beginning of Surah Al-Ma'idah now. Naam, Jazakallahu khairan, Allah yabarak fiik. So that's verse number 6 of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ وَإِن كُنتُمْ جُنُبًا فَطَهَّرُوا. And till the end of the ayah here. So, O you who believe, when you intend to offer a salat, then wash your faces and your hands up to the elbows, and rub your heads and wash your feet up to the ankles. And if you are in a state of janaba, then purify yourself. We also have a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, which Rasulullah says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. That Allah does not accept anyone's salah of you when you are defiled until you perform wudu, ablution. So we have tahara, that is ritual bathing called al-ghusl, we described from al-hadath al-akbar, and then wudu from al-hadath al-asghar. We also have a third type of tahara, which is a concession to us, and that is called Naam? A tayammum in the absence of water. Okay, the dry ablution. And then, like we said, purification is of two types. Tahara min al-hadath, which is purifying oneself after being defiled, whether major or minor, or tahara from an-najasa, which is impurity. So an example of tahara min al-najasa, when somebody goes to the washroom, they clean themselves, they cleanse themselves of the najasa, or if somebody had gotten some najasa on his clothing or on the spot of his prayer, then they have to cleanse it, okay? So, when it comes to the process of at-tahara or purification, there is three components of the tahara. One is al-mutatahhir, which is, what does al-mutatahhir mean? The one who is performing at-tahara. Okay, it's like the adjective, I don't know, the grammar would call it, that's the description of the person who is performing the tahara, al-mutatahhir, the performer of the purification. Then you have mutatahharun bih, which is the substance being used for purification, which is naturally water or earth. And then you have the tahara, which is the purification itself. And then you have an-nafil, which is the nullifier of purification. Or you can say al-mutatahhir minhu, yani a cause for the purification, where you're purifying yourself from, like we said, such as major and minor impurity. So those specifications for the one who is performing purification, okay, purification is to be done when it comes to al-mutatahhir, the one performing purification, like any other ibadah, there is conditions of the individual who is performing purification. Okay, so the person who is performing purification, they have to be, what's one of the conditions of the person performing the purification? They have to be Muslim. What else? They have to be sane. They have to be baligh, mature or accountable, or mukallaf. Okay? They have to be someone who is not prevented from a tangible factor or a shar'i impediment. Okay? So as for the performer of the purification, he must be someone who is a mukallaf, meaning someone who is accountable to the Sharia, someone who is over the age of puberty, and they are, so over the age of purity, i.e. they're an adult, okay, and they are, as the brother mentioned, they are a Muslim, and they are sane, and the term mukallaf that is used, okay, it shows here that the one who's doing such a thing, okay, or the common denominator between somebody who does not have these characteristics of a mukallaf is that they are unable to form a niyyah. Okay, a kafir does not form a niyyah that's accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Someone who is insane cannot make a niyyah. Someone who is under the age of puberty, or tamyiz, okay, they cannot make a niyyah, they cannot formulate a niyyah or an intention. So therefore, that being said, if they cannot form the intention, then they cannot do it as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has required of them. What's the difference between a mumayyiz and someone who's baligh? Anybody know? We have something that's called age of tamyiz and age of bulugh. Bulugh is someone who has reached the age of puberty. But tamyiz is something different. Anybody know what's the difference? So someone who is mumayyiz is someone who is less than the age of puberty, but he is still able to comprehend. Okay, he's still able to comprehend. So sometimes there's a child where he hasn't reached puberty yet, however, he does have comprehension skills. Okay, this is someone who is mumayyiz. So, that being said, many of the scholars, they say that the ibadah or the salah or the tahara of a person who is at the age of has tamyiz but he's not baligh, they say it is not acceptable. Okay? However, we know in a hadith that's accepted by some scholars for its authenticity that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he ordered us to teach our children to pray when they are 7, and then to punish them if they don't when they are 10. Okay? So there is khilaf between the ulama amongst the scholars. They have a difference as to whether or not the mumayyiz is considered mukallaf or not, but we're not going to dive into that in depth too much. But the vast majority of the scholars do not refer to anyone below the age of puberty as a mukallaf. Okay, they call them, if anything, a mumayyiz. So that's according to the majority of scholars. So salah or its purification is not obligated upon a mumayyiz. So a mumayyiz is at an age where someone's starting to absorb information. You can teach them, they can learn. However, they're not obligated by it yet. Until they reach maturity or puberty, then they become obligated by the ibadat, and they have to abide by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded and forbidden. So, the performer of the purification, as I mentioned, is someone who is an adult, they're above puberty, they're accountable, they're competent, and they are safe. They are free from tangible factors or shari'i impediments. So, what does that mean to be free for tahara? You have to be free from tangible factors.
Like being withheld from performing the acts of
Like
access to a bathroom, but you're prevented because there is no bathroom. You're maybe all on the highway somewhere. You have no access to it.
Okay, so just in Arabic they say al-mani' al-hissi, okay, a tangible factor, a preventative factor that is tangible. Another one, for example, is like a barrier that you have on your flesh that prevents water from reaching the skin. Okay, we know that for wudu or the tahara to be correct, the water has to reach the flesh. So if somebody has a barrier, okay, sometimes females, they put on those types of nails. Okay, that's a barrier, it prevents water from reaching the flesh. So therefore, there is a tangible preventative factor there. Okay, so they have to get rid of that in order to perform tahara. And we also know that there's other forms of that too, which is more common. For example, like paint. Some people, they work in the trades, they have paint on them, on their skin. Sometimes there's some paint that it doesn't allow water to pass through, or maybe some dough or some type of glue. Anyways, these are things that are tangible factors that prevent water from reaching the flesh. So, a side note on this is that one who has these type of things, you must remove it in order to make tahara. And one must do their best to remove as much as possible. Sometimes it's very, very difficult for somebody to remove for example, some glue. It comes on the skin, no matter how much you scrub and how much you try, it's very, very difficult to remove. So what happens if somebody tries to remove it but they cannot remove it? What is the hukm on that person?
They cannot remove it.
Yes. That means that khalas, there's no salah upon them. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not burden a person beyond his scope. So you do your best And we know that there is a general qa'idah within the Sharia that with hardship comes ease. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah intends ease for you and does not want to make things difficult for you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا, like we just mentioned. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَبَّنَا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به. O our Lord, do not burden us greater than we have the strength to bear. And Allah says, يريد الله أن يخفف عنكم. And Allah wishes to lighten your burden. وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج. Allah says, He has not laid upon you in the religion any type of hardship. So, there's many ayat that point to this qa'idah. There is difference amongst some of the scholars. Some of them, they went to extreme measures to say that if there's one speck underneath the nail, okay, that is preventing water from reaching, then the wudu is batil. However, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he says, and he adopts a very beautiful opinion, and others as well, as they say that if there's something minor underneath the nails, okay, that deprives the water from reaching or touching that tiny area, that it does not invalidate the wudu. And sometimes, and these matters, brothers and sisters, are way to focus, because sometimes we experience this on a daily basis. This is a very frequent occurrence that we go through. Sometimes people, they're stuck, they're in a predicament, they don't know what to do. Okay, they have something under their nails, especially some brothers that work with their hands, mechanics and whatnot, they have some type of grease or something. Okay, they try to get it out as best as possible, but they cannot get it all out. There's some specks in there that they cannot get out, and it's preventing water from reaching the flesh there. But Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, rahimahullah, says that this inshallah doesn't affect the wudu, and the reason being is that this is such a frequent occurrence that happens amongst people. Okay, so if you think about Ayyam al-Sahaba, at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is something that would have naturally occurred very frequently. But nevertheless, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he never told us that this is something that has to be removed, that the tiny speck underneath the nail would invalidate wudu. And we know that it's not permissible. لا يجوز تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. It's not permissible to delay the conveying of knowledge past the point of when it's needed. So that being said, Shaykh al-Islam uses this ayat to say that had it been something that actually nullifies or prevents the wudu from being correct, it would have been made clear to us by Rasulullah, and it wasn't made clear, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The next point is that the performer of the purification has to be free from legitimate Shari'i impediments. Okay, what's a Shari'i impediment?
You want an example?
Yes.
You can't fast on Yom Kippur. Is that what?
Yeah, I'm talking about for the salat,
I know, but like this is
or for the Tahara.
relation.
Okay.
Oh, you can't.
Anything else?
You can't pray salah out of time.
Can't pray salah out of its time. Okay. But how about something for Tahara in specific? You can't? Najasa? Okay. But a Shari'i impediment for injured. An injury would fall under the first category, a physical, a tangible factor. Someone's injured, it's a tangible thing. A Shari'i impediment would be somebody, a kafir making wudu. Yujuz kafir to make wudu, it's accepted by Allah. That's a Shari'i impediment. If someone's kafir, they cannot make wudu. Okay? Or Shari'i impediment is the absence of the niyyah. Okay? The absence of the niyyah. If somebody goes inside the shower to cool down, and they come out after and they say, Alhamdulillah, it's time for salah, now I can pray. I just took a shower. Is that sahih? No, because there's a Shari'i impediment there. Okay, which is the absence of the niyyah. So, And that's a mani' shari. Okay? Another example, let's say a woman makes the ghusl while she's on her menstruation. Can she pray now? No, because she has this mani' shari. Even if she makes ghusl 10 times, she cannot pray yet. Okay? And another side note, and I think we'll conclude with this inshallah, is that al-wudu doesn't remove the major impurity. Okay, wudu doesn't remove major impurity, as we took before. What's needed to remove major impurity? Al-ghusl. And what's needed to remove minor impurity? Al-wudu. However, someone who is on major impurity can lessen that by making wudu. How so?
If there's a, if you can't do ghusl, if he doesn't have the means to do ghusl,
نعم. لا قصدي not يعني if you want to lessen الحدث يعني you're not using it to make salat, you're not using the act to replace the major, to erase the major impurity, but you're trying to lessen it. So sunnah, maybe lots of people are unaware. For example, if somebody is junub, they're on janaba, tamam? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he commanded or he said that if somebody is junub, they should not sleep until they make wudu. So, or he would not eat alayhi salam until he made wudu. So that being said, this is an example of how someone that's on major impurity can lessen it for such things. Someone who's junub, before they sleep, they make al-wudu. Okay, does that mean that they're good to pray now? No more janaba? No. But it's a way of lessening the major impurity, and that, according to some ulama, it's wajib to do that, and according to them, it's just mustahab.
what about if there's a salah and a salah that's approaching, is it prescribed for you to make the ghusl instead of the wudu, just for the sake of not missing the salah or following the sin by?
Well, if the person is going to miss the salah, or the person has to make the salah, then it becomes wajib for them to make the ghusl, right? So, and according to the khilaf, depending on, for example, let's say somebody's within the distance of the masjid, that makes it wajib to pray salat al-jama'ah in the masjid. Okay, then the time is approaching, then yes, it will become wajib for him to make ghusl so he can go and pray salah. Okay, so with this we'll conclude the segment of the performer of the purification, or al-mutatahhir. And inshallah, next time we'll talk about the substance used for purification moving forward, i.e. water or earth, inshallah. So we won't go any longer than that. If anybody has a question, feel free to ask. Otherwise, jazakumullahu khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad.